Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbard Gaming. Today I've got a fresh pile of hot garbage for you in my latest episode of Complete Trash, where I play a terrible game all the way through so you don't have to. You're welcome. Today's offensive odors are wafting our way, courtesy of Altered Beast for the Sega Master System. First up, here's a very quick peek at the arcade version, while I tell you just a smidge about the SMS release. As the Master System version goes, Sega dropped this stinker on us in 1989, just before the release of the Genesis. Now here's the thing, sure, it's fun to mock it and all, but this is another one of those games where I can really appreciate the ambition. If you look at arcade Altered Beast here, it uses a lot of sprites. The sprites are pretty big, it's 2 players at once. I mean, in other words, it's basically a game that would have been impossible to get running on Sega's 8-bit machine in any recognizable way. So, instead of going with teeny tiny sprites like we see in the Famicom version of the game, Sega used what looks like a combination of sprites and tiles. This let them put a lot of really large characters on the screen, but also has some serious limitations. This thing runs at approximately 0 frames per second. Now that's an exaggeration, of course, but it's really not too far from the truth. There's a lot of slowdown when the screen is filled up with enemies, and the controls are severely delayed. There's a lot of noticeable lag, and that's even on real hardware. The final insults are they removed a level from this version, the cave level, which is level 3, and this version of the game is also only 1 player. Now, Sega Master System Altered Beast is roughly 10 minutes long. Oh, and for my recording methodology here, yeah, I use some save states, and I'll explain why during the video, although you can probably already imagine from what I just told you about the game. Are you ready to see this atrocity? Let's get on with it. And we're underway. Yeah, we don't have the voice samples for Rise from Your Grave, sadly, and it also says crave instead of grave, but hey, what can you do? And look at that frame rate, look at the way your character walks across the screen. And this is it running at a pretty decent clip. It's only going to get slower when there's more things going on. Now, despite that, I mean, the overall character designs look pretty good and fairly close to that arcade original, considering the limitations of the Master System when it comes to colors and resolution and things like that. We're of course missing lots of stuff like the gravestones that pop out of the ground, and as you can see, I just picked up one of the spirit orbs, and there's only one stage of power-up in this game where you get larger, and this is it. In the arcade version, you start small, you get 1 orb, you get a little bigger, you get a 2nd orb, you get a lot bigger, you get a 3rd orb, and you turn into a beast. In this one, you only need 2 orbs to turn into the beast form. And as you can see, there's also quite a lot of, let's call it dead air here, where there's basically nothing going on and you just sit there waiting for enemies to show up. That'll happen in just about every level at some point. Now we do get the beast transformation scenes, which are absent from some other versions, and they even have a little sample for the beast roar. And oddly enough, it's a little different for every beast, sort of like the arcade version. Although they don't really sound like the arcade ones all that much. Oh, another thing I should mention about the controls in Master System Altered Beast. Remember, the Master System only has 2 buttons. So, 1 button does your punch attack, 1 button does your kick attack. So how do you jump? Do you just press up? Oh no, you have to press the 2 buttons together at the same time to jump. If you want to do a high jump, you have to hold up and press the 2 buttons at the same time together. Surely they could have worked out something better for the jumping mechanics in this game. Alright, so here's Neff. We don't see him get bigger. He just goes into a poof of smoke, and there's the boss. They're not all on plain black backgrounds like this one, so we'll see some stuff as we go along here that was a little bit different. But anyway, again, design-wise, it's not too bad. I mean, obviously there's a loss of detail, there's a loss of color, and there's no background, but the boss itself looks pretty good. And the gameplay at this point, despite the control lag that I mentioned earlier, I mean, it's alright, it's kind of tolerable in this first level. If the whole game played relatively okay like this level did, you know, then there might not really be a big problem with this one. But things do get worse. Oh, they get so much worse. You can also see when Neff's head pops up, he doesn't even take your power-ups away. You stay in beast form, and then you just start the next level in human form. Now you'll notice here that it's not playing the right music for this level. Altered Beast for the Master System only has 2 level songs. The one we just heard in the first level, and this one. This song is repeated in level 3, and the first level song is repeated in level 4. And again, visually, not too bad here. I mean, the wolves or Cerberuses or whatever they're supposed to be are teeny tiny in this version of the game. And I don't know why the white one flashes instead of just saying white, but, you know, that's what they chose to do. Again, here's one of those dead spots for a little bit. And those stupid little slime bag things that jump on your head. Man, I hate those. Does everybody else hate those? I really hate those things. There's one that just fell out of the sky right onto me. And look at that! I bet you weren't expecting to see those full giant dragons here. That's pretty impressive. So I do give him some points for that one. Like I said, there's a lot of ambition on display in this game. It just would have been nice if some of that ambition had been focused on the gameplay itself. And one thing you won't really hear me pound this one for is the lack of parallax, because the arcade version doesn't have parallax. Pretty much only the Genesis version does. And as slow as this version runs already, I don't think they could have gotten even a decent raster-based version of parallax working well on this. So you can see when we use the electricity that just surrounds your body with the kick button, in this game it doesn't shoot out, you just flash different colors and things die if they touch you. So that's something that's missing that's in the other versions. Other than that, I mean, they did a pretty good job on this particular beast form. It's very large for the Master System, and it looks great. Here is Neff for his second boss appearance. We will just have a black background here on this boss. And this boss looks alright also. I mean, it's a lot smaller than the arcade one, but it's not that much smaller than the Genesis version, oddly enough. And it doesn't take too much to take it out. Basically just have to make sure that none of the eyes are in your direct horizontal range, and just punch away at it from close up. You want to punch away from close up because the beam that fires out of your hand, another one won't fire out until the first one is off the screen. There can't be more than one on screen at one time. But anyway, that's level 2. We're halfway done. Here's level 3, which is level 4 in the arcade and Genesis versions. Here's a level where I'll show you some sort of semi-game hacks, as when it comes to gameplay, I mean. So let's call this Master System Altered Beast Life Hack number 1. You can just hang out up here while you let the zombies just kinda shamble along. And we can see there's an awful lot of flicker in this part. When one or two get off screen, the flicker lessens a little bit. When a few of them are gone, almost all the flicker is completely eliminated. But if you really miss it, don't worry, because as soon as we get a few more enemies in a straight line again, that flicker will be right back. And it's just about time to pick up power-up number 1 for this level. I didn't mean to do that kick there to get it, but hey, it worked, so I can't complain. And yes, we will become a were-tiger in this level just like the arcade game. Now, I knew somebody as a teenager who used to watch me play the arcade version of this from time to time, and she was absolutely disgusted by the size of the characters' heads when the body got really big. And it looks a little dumb. Never bothered me as much as it did her, but different strokes for different folks, right? Anyway, we continue our long march towards the end of this level. There's not too much more to go, so don't worry. As you can see, this is another gap where there's not a lot of enemies, not a lot going on. I will comment that the level itself looks pretty nice here. They did a good job on it. It's got a decent amount of detail, especially for a smaller cartridge. Here we have our tiger transformation. The only transformation missing from this one is the bear transformation, which, you know, we would have seen in the third level, which is the one that was cut from this one. Let me clarify and say I mean the cave level, which was the third level in the arcade version. That's the one that was cut from this, that would have occurred right before this level had it been included. And here we get a little enemy rush just right before the boss fight. And you can see they threw in some of the enemies from the cave level into this stage, since that stage is missing from this one. In the end, there are only 2 enemies actually missing from the Sega Master System version of Altered Beast. The Stage 3 boss, the cave boss, and one of the enemies from Stage 3, the rock turtle. Everything else is in here. Here is Neff for his third of 4 appearances. Again, this boss is pretty similar to the arcade one. And you probably are thinking, hey, you said not all the bosses have a black screen, but we've only seen bosses with black screens so far. Well, yeah, that's true. And the last boss doesn't have a black screen, so they don't all have it. We'll see him in not too long. We just gotta keep plugging away at him while avoiding his relatively simple pattern-based attacks that just loop. And I will take this opportunity to point out that this game is not as easy as I am making it look here, because remember, as I told you earlier in the video, I did use some save states. And the reason I did that is because of the severe amount of control lag. Sometimes it misses when you press a button or when you jump. And that's not just an emulation-related issue. That's something that happened on real hardware. It's just because of how slowly this game runs. Now, I don't know the reason for it, but if I was a betting man, I would say they're not polling the controls at like every single frame when the game updates. Or they're waiting until the frame updates rather than polling the controls like 60 times a second, which some games do even with slower frame rates. Despite Master System Altered Beast's other problems, I'd say that slow, laggy controls are by far the thing that is most wrong with it. This final stage of the game looks pretty good, I gotta say. The colors are pretty nice in it, even though, of course, we see some serious limitations. But overall, they've really captured the, at least, spirit of the arcade game, if nothing else. It still is pretty impressive, I gotta say, how large some of the characters are here, and just how much they've got going on at one time. I understand how they did it and some of the shortcuts that they took. I mean, just look at these teeny tiny little goat demons that are after you here. Just look at them, aren't they precious? But seriously, it really is pretty impressive the sheer amount of stuff they've managed to get on the screen at one time in this version of Altered Beast. And I will say, if nothing else, at least there was a lot of creativity at play here when they came up with ideas on how exactly to try and translate a sprite-heavy game like Altered Beast onto a sprite-weak piece of hardware like the Master System. You should not be surprised by the fact that the final transformation, which is just the werewolf from level 1 in a different color, is indeed present in this version of Altered Beast. And you may have noticed there were some missing enemies here, like the unicorns, or the little roly-poly things that look kind of like armadillos. Well, guess what? You're going to see some of them now. There's the little roly-poly guys. And then we're going to come up to the nightmarish final form of Neff in this game, which it wouldn't even be so bad. But the controls make this fight an utter slog. The first time I did this when I was practicing, I went through this for like an hour trying to get it down the way I wanted to, so that it wouldn't take forever. I don't want to just record this and have you watch a really long, drawn-out fight. There's big spaces of me just jumping over him and shooting across to the other side of the screen. That doesn't exactly make for compelling video now, does it? So I tried to do what I could to make this fight go faster. Now, ordinarily, the techniques I'm using here are not complicated. I'm just shooting a few fireballs at him, jumping over and trying to hit him on the head while I do that, and trying to nail him with a fireball while I land from the jump. The problem here is those controls are so terrible and so laggy. Sometimes it misses your jump and he ended up just running into me and killing me. Other times, instead of missing the jump, it would execute that fire dash that shoots the wolf all the way across the screen instead of jumping, and he would run into me. And this continued for quite some time. So really the key here is you've got to be patient, and you've got to play it safe if you want to beat this game. And what exactly do I mean by that? Well, the thing is, you don't get any continues in this game normally. Now you'll notice I use the qualifier normally, because there is a way to continue, and you can continue up to 4 times in this, but it's a secret method with a direction and button presses, and it's different for each number continue. Meaning you do it one way for continue 1, another way for continue 2, another way for continue 3, and a different way for continue 4. Which is kind of insane. And there we are. We have just completed Sega Master System Altered Beast. And here is our fantastic ending. It's got where the princess flies out, as a bird. And we'll see her turn into a person. Yeah, we walk up to her in beast form and just become a person, and guess what? That's it. Everything else is gone. It doesn't have any of the ending stuff from any other versions of the game. This is it. It just plays the song here. Oh, one other thing I'll note for this video is I'm showing you the version with FM sound so I could present this game in the best possible way. In the actual US version that we got of this game, it would have just used standard PSG music, obviously, because we didn't get the FM sound unit over here in the US. Now you can play it this way on real hardware, using some of the various cartridges out there with SD card slots that let you play ROMs these days, but you would have never heard this on the original cartridge in a US system during the game's initial release. One other thing that was cut from this version of Altered Beast that I didn't really get a chance to talk about because this game happened so fast is that it's missing the in-between level cutscenes, which show you the story by showing you a nice little graphic inside a crystal ball. This was present in the Genesis and arcade versions, but not in this Sega Master System game. And more about this ending, we're missing some nice pictures that told a funny story in the arcade version, and we're missing some interactive elements from the Genesis ending, which was actually completely different. And with that, I'll let this fade, and we'll do a very, very quick wrap-up, where I sum up what we just suffered through. Did you survive seeing the whole game without gouging your eyes out? Wow, you must have a pretty hefty physical constitution. Good for you! Now in the end, as much fun as I had showing you how bad Sega Master System Altered Beast was, I still really appreciate the ambition that was on display in this game. Sega really went for it. Now, they totally whiffed, this is not a good game, but crazily enough, this is nowhere near the worst home version of Altered Beast either. And personally, I'd rather play this one than the Famicom version I mentioned earlier, which is also bad, but for totally different reasons. But it is real close, I think, between that version and this one. Anyway, have you played Sega Master System Altered Beast before? Do you love it? Do you hate it? What's your favorite home version of the game? Tell me all about it in the comments. And that'll do it for today's video, my retro gaming friends. If you enjoyed it, please like and share it online somewhere. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. If you want to support the work I do here, you can now do that at Patreon, Ko-fi, or through YouTube memberships. As a side note, that's also how I fund most of the hardware reviews that I do around here. With that, I'll say thanks for watching, and see me later.